The Gemara says in Megillah that in Kriyat Torah, Hagolel noter sachar keneged kulam, which is has been given to me as my zchut tonight to wrap up this very important meeting. In davening, before Shemona Esrei, twice a day there's a mitzvah of Kriyat Shema, which includes at its heart Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim. And Chazal surrounded mitzvah Kriyat Shema, or more importantly, preceded mitzvah Kriyat Shema with two brachot, Bekat Yotzer and Bekat Ahava, for the purpose of explaining, of clarifying what is Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim. Who is the God who is our King when we say Shema? The two brachot, the first one is Yotzer HaMa'olam, which means that God created nature and rules nature and runs nature. The second one is Ava Rabbah, which is officially talking about the love of God for Am Yisrael, but in its content is about Torah. The love of God for Am Yisrael is expressed in Torah. And therefore we say that bracha in the Shacharit, it's much longer than in Aravit. We say Avinu Ava Rachaman, Rachem Aleinu, V'tim B'libeinu Lavin, ולהשכיל, לשמוע, ללמוד, וללמד, לשמור ולעשות ולקיים כל דברי תורתך באהבה. You have a list there which runs from one to the other, which begins in very intellectual terms, להבין ולהשכיל, but then continues without a chance to take a breath, לשמור, ללמוד וללמד, לשמור, לעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תורתך באהבה. And what the Bick is saying is that Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim, the essence of Avodat Hashem, V'ahavta Shema Yisrael, is addressed to God on two levels. The first level is not relevant for tonight. The first level is God who rules the entire world of nature, Jews and non-Jews. And the second level is Havocheh Amo Yisrael Ba'ava, Ohevet Amo Yisrael. How? By giving them Torah, and in the bracha, we already say God gives us the Torah, and therefore we request, we commit ourselves, we declare that we will be L'havinu, L'haskil, L'shmor, L'mod, L'lamed, L'shmor, V'lasot, L'kayim. In Jewish history, there has been a certain amount of divide, of separation, of tension between L'shmor and L'ilmod. In yeshivot, in the history of yeshivot, male yeshivot, so that's been expressed by a constant tension and effort to make sure that the Talmud Torah, which is essential to the curriculum of the yeshiva, should be attached, should not be divorced from, because it is divorced, so try to overcome the divorce, to Shmirat Mitzvot. This is called Lasukei Shmai Taliba de Hilchata, and sometimes there are divisions and there are machlokot, and disagreements about how to do it, but there's this constant attempt to make sure, to try to overcome the natural divide between learning Lishma, irrespective of what's going on, and that the Torah should be right away connected to Limud. A famous expression of that is in the Igeret of the Ramban, which he wrote to his son, who, like himself, was a Lamdan. And at the very end of it, he says, after talking about Musaf, something else entirely, talking about Anava and Yirah, he says, when you learn, because you're learning all day, every single day when you finish learning, think that I learned something which I can apply. The very fact that it's necessary, and Igeret Ramban was meant to be read every day, the very necessity to remind one to do that is because there's a natural tendency to divide the two. In another section, the division also applies somewhat in the other way around. Many people are Shomer Mitzvot and didn't see the need. And historically, the amount of people who were learning seriously to understand the mitzvot they were doing was a small percentage of Am Yisrael, very small percentage, very often of Am Yisrael. That didn't necessarily impede their ability to Mekayim Mitzvot, Am Yisrael's Mekayim Mitzvot. And they were doing it without a connection to Torah, of which Chazal say, Ein Am Haaretz Chasid. The usual explanation of Ein Am Haaretz Chasid would be the practical explanation. Eventually you'll make a mistake. If you don't know halacha well, so you can't be a full Mekayim Mitzvot, because at some point you're going to do something wrong. So I don't think that's the real pshat, or that's maybe the first part, it's not the deeper pshat. The word Chasid is not the same as saying Shomer Mitzvot. And secondly, okay, it could happen, but then you have to make sure that you have a good that you have the phone number of a Rav in your cell phone, or you're connected to the internet, or you stay at home where there's somebody nearby. It could be eventually you'll be in some place where you'll be on your own. Ein HaMaretz cannot be without chet, but no one can be without chet. I think the real pshat is Ein HaMaretz Chasid, is that lilmod ulelamed lishmo v'lasot ulekayim. That kiyum mitzvot, avodat Hashem, kabbalat ol malchut shamayim is based on learning Torah because Hashem gave us the Torah ba'ahava, and therefore we say al kain nasiach b'chukecha v'nishmor mitzvotecha. It goes together. God who gave us the Torah, and therefore we respond by no connection to the ability to be makayim a particular mitzvah of Talmud Torah. But our expression of avodat Hashem is to be obeyed Hashem by understanding the mitzvot that we're doing and we're doing it. But therefore, today is really a Yom Chag. Another step, it's not the only step, another step in accomplishing what historically was always deficient to some extent in Am Yisrael, and that is the joining together of Torah v'halacha, Torah and shmirat mitzvot, and limud Torah, lilmod Toratecha v'lishmor mitzvotecha. Lori mentioned that I run an organization called the Virtual Beit Midrash. It's been 25 years, which I think might be older than some of the people in the room, and therefore, and also it's been a long time. You may not be aware how revolutionary it really was, not because we found a new technology. The technology is revolutionary for one simple reason, for this reason. Before, Torah existed in Batei Medrash. Batei Medrash are of a given size. There are only so many people can fit into them. And you have to get there, and you have to go there. And they're not meant for regular people. Hopefully, for a certain period of time, the young people, we send them to yeshiva, we send them to an opener, to midrashah, to learn. Afterwards, but the Batei Medrash are by definition outside of the normal world. And they don't hold all of Klal Yisrael. Gigi mentioned mitzvah takel. Okay, once in 7 years, you try to drag everybody into the Chatzot Beit HaMikdash, to the Azara, to hear the Torah read, so that they should realize, people should understand that the connection to Avodat Hashem can only run through Shmiyat Divrei Torah. The revolution in an internet site is exactly that point, that it's accomplishing what was done B'Har Sinai, it was done B'Hakel once every 7 years, and it's the beginning of accomplishing, of bringing every single, by the definition of to be a Jew, is not just to be Oved Hashem by doing a mitzvot, but to do his mitzvot by understanding, to knowing what the halacha really requires. There's a marshal which is far too extreme to recommend, but we can deduct 50% from it and still understand it. The marshal claims that if you do a mitzvah without knowing how God commanded it, by which he meant you read it in the Shulchan Aruch, but you didn't see how the Gemara derived it from the pasuk, you're not really being Oved Hashem. Because you're not doing it because God commanded you. You're doing it because it said it in the handbook, in the guide to Jewish living that you got as a bar mitzvah gift or bat mitzvah gift when you were 13 years old. So the Mashal, in all honesty, is a bit over the top. He basically says that most Jews aren't B'kayim mitzvot. But the point is correct. The point is that to be an Oved Hashem, not to do the right thing, but to be Oved Hashem. So our Kiyum Mitzvot has to be based on understanding that God commanded us and how He commanded, to hear the voice at Har Sinai. To hear what we will hear on Shavuot when, once again, we return to Har Sinai, because once you have to go back to the actual accomplishment, and to hear it again from God. And not from Rabbi Yosef Karo, not from the Rambam, and not from Google either. And that's what this endeavor, which has been put together in the last few months and is having its official inauguration today, is so revolutionary and so important as part of a greater revolution of making sure that anyone who thinks that he has a connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu will have that connection in his understanding of halacha, the marriage of halacha and Talmud Torah as being one thing. And therefore, I think that this is really a Yom Chag that this is taking place. It's obvious to me that there's no difference in this respect. There are other questions which will be discussed, presumably in different shiurim in the Deracheha. But in this respect, there is no difference between Anashim, Nashim, B'Taf, as what Gigi mentioned, because it's the connection of Jews to Derech Hashem. So how that's expressed and how that's done, at what times, etc., is another question. But that a person should think that he can be Oved Hashem without hearing God's voice commanding, without seeing how this halacha reached him through the Dovot, even B'Gish, Derech HaMesavah, Derech HaSfarim, Derech Sinai, is a necessity for Kabbalat Oruch Hashemayim and our being of Dei Hashem. In Shirat Hayam, the last holiday that we celebrated 6 weeks ago, so after Moshe Rabbeinu said Shirat Hayam, it says that Miriam, the other women went out, but Ta'an Lahem Miriam. This is the place which proves that the word Ta'an, Aniyah, does not mean to answer, since no one had spoken beforehand. It properly would be translated as to respond, but it means to respond, not to answer. It means to react to something. But Ta'an, that's what we have in the Tefillah very often. Onim ve'omrim, b'yirah. Onim means to see something and to respond properly to it, or to hear something and respond properly to it. Batan lehem Miriam, Shuvah Hashem ki ga'ogah. That was an unusual example of seeing Malchut Hashem arise. The state of God in the world is not constant. And Kriyat Hayam Suf was an amazing revelation of God's power, which requires a response. Shuvah Hashem ki ga'ogah. In our lives, and ultimately I think in the Hitgalut Hashem ba'olam, ki ga'ogah, God's presence in the world, is Am Yisrael Oved Hashem, which means Am Yisrael Nosei et HaTorah, Mikabel et HaTorah B'Har Sinai, learning Torah and fulfilling Torah as something which is understood and learned. And therefore, I think that tonight and every night that one learns, is a time to say Shuvah Hashem, Ki Ga'o. The fact that more and more people who not that many years ago would not have thought that it was possible for them to learn seriously. They did what they were told to do, or they didn't do what they were told to do. But that they should be learning Torah was not part of the existence, not part of the situation in which they found themselves. It wasn't part of the relationship with God or with the Jewish community. The fact that every day more and more people are being brought into that thing is the ultimate revolution of our times. It's going back to Har Sinai when Kol Am Yisrael was standing b'tachtit hahar, and they all heard equally, and in the same breath. They heard the first two dibot and the kol shofar blowing, and this is one more step, one very important step in widening that circle. And this is it's part. We don't always see it that way. It's part of the amazing kiyum, which we know is what's special about our times. We sing it on nights, but this is we begin to see it. Na'ari me'yafa, kumi livshi bigdei tifatech, bigdei tifartech of Am Yisrael is Torah v'limud Torah, and the more people, the more circles, the more different kinds of people learn Torah because it's nafshan ki hem chayenu va'orech yameinu, as it says in the same bracha. That is na'ari me'yafa. It's the Shekhinah and Am Yisrael coming out of the existence of being just part of the earth, ki ga'o, more Shekhinah every day. And I'm happy to say for myself, my own bracha, to every participant here and every participant in the world, because participants here are still sitting in a room. But the real kiyum, the real accomplishment of what's being accomplished here is making it part of the atmosphere, making it part of the what's called cyberspace. Every single person, wherever he is, will have an attachment to learning Torah. Kumi ori kiva orech.